On the other side of this river was a huge modern city. This picture here is inaccurate because nothing was gold. And I know this may come to a surprise and maybe disappointment to everybody, but there was no gold. It was not shiny gold. It was like a normal, regular city, but perfect. And the areas that we were walking were not gold. They were red brick. And the red brick, just like the sign, all of the mortar in between the brick or the cement was like perfectly white, and there was no dirt at all, and the bricks were perfect, and it was just amazing, and it was comforting. You know, I don't know how else to explain it. On the other side that I could see the city, it was just extremely modern. Now, working in the airline industry, I've had a chance to travel all over the world, and it really reminded me of Shanghai, and especially this building here, because on some of the buildings there were these round objects that looked like they could be detachable and flown, sort of like craft. But as we walked, I just kept walking down and looking at these amazing buildings and the blue sky, and it was just like, it was like Earth. It was like this ultra-modern, unbelievably clean, crisp, shining city, and it was just amazing. And as we continued to walk down, suddenly the lady turned to me, and I turned to her, and in an instant, I mean an instant, like there was not even a rush of wind. It was like 1 second we were there, the next second we were in this neighborhood that was in biblical time. And I kind of was led to believe that in my spirit that this was where she was from, and that I was now standing near her home. And in fact, she did bring me to this home that was fashioned the way the buildings were back then. And we walked in, and there was a stairwell, a stone stairwell that went upstairs, and I ran up the stairwell, and she was right behind me. Like I said, she did not leave my side. And when I got up there, I was like in this room, and it was very biblical times, very ancient times, but it was still very nice. And I remember having a conversation with her. Now, most of the time that I was there, I don't remember a whole lot of the conversations, but this particular conversation I remember. And I remember looking at her, and I remember her red lips. She had red lipstick on. I looked at her in her face, and I said, you know what? I know I'm dreaming. And she laughed, and she thought it was really amusing. And I said, no, but really, I know that you're laughing, you think it's funny, but I know that I'm dreaming. I know that my body's on Earth dreaming. And she found that very amusing, and she knew I knew that I was dreaming. And then she said, well, you have to go back now. And I remember saying to her, no, I don't want to go back. I'm so happy to be here, and I've never felt like this before, and I don't want to go back. And she looked at me and she said, but you have to go back, because if you don't go back, your family would be very, very devastated, and it would alter God's plan that they have for them. So I was led to kind of believe that if I didn't return, that my parents would be so grief-stricken that they would not fulfill their destiny and their purpose. And I really found, and I worried about that, you know, and I was worried about that in my life. So I said, oh yeah, you're right, maybe I should go back. So we walked down the stairs, we came back out the front door, and no sooner did I step out the front door that I found myself back at this modern city, walking behind these people. Suddenly, there was like an announcement. It sounded like it came over some type of a loudspeaker. It was echoing, and it said, everybody remain calm, we are descending towards Earth now. Now, I worked on an airplane for a decade, so I know that descending feeling, and that's what it felt like. And she looked at me and she said, you know, now's the time for you to leave. You have to leave. And so I turned around and I walked back to the area where we had come in, where the bushes were and the smaller homes and buildings. And I started to walk back to where the sign was, and I was going through these bushes, and they were getting thicker, and suddenly they kind of like lifted me off of my feet until I was going from a standing walking position to a laying on my back position, and then I began to descend. Next thing I knew, I was looking at my ceiling in my bedroom. And I was on my back, I didn't see my body, and I was coming down very slowly, and I looked over in my doorway, and I saw a very tall figure that was probably about 8 feet tall, that had a black sheet over it, and it looked like somebody with a cheap Halloween costume on. It was like a really tall guy with this pitch black sheet that went down to the floor. And I looked at it and I go, oh, no, no, no. I know exactly who you are and what you are, and I command you to be gone right now in the name of Jesus Christ. And it moved very quickly past the foot of my bed and out the wall. And at this time, my legs and my torso was already back into my body, and my head was just settling back down. And I was starting to get drowsy, and I could feel the weight of my body, and I heard a female voice say, "It's okay, it's gone now." And I heard a male voice say, "You're right, it's gone now." And then I agreed with them and said, "Yes, it's gone now." And with that, I was completely back in my body, and I was completely asleep. Then I woke up, I don't know, a few hours later, and I immediately called my mom, and I wrote the experience down. Because I had never had anything like that ever happen to me before. The reason why that shadow being was there is because whenever you have a positive supernatural experience, there's always gonna be a demon that's one step behind to discourage you, harass you, make you feel like you saw wasn't real, make you feel like that you're crazy and the experience that you had was just all in your mind. But I know spiritual warfare, and I told that thing to get out of my room, and it did. So I know that this experience was real, and I also know that I'm going to be going there one day, and I'm very honored that I got to go to the 5th level of heaven without even I never even saw the 3rd level. It was like I was right there at the city. So I felt very honored that I was able to be there, and it was wonderful, and I just cannot explain in words the sense of joy and peace and happiness and the just enormous amount of relief and love. The love was just incredible, and it wasn't, a physical love. I don't really know how else to explain it. And I asked the Lord after I came back a couple of days later, I'm like, oh, I really want to go back, and I haven't been yet. But it was wonderful. It really was, and I just don't really see how anybody can just willfully sin and not believe and be willing to give all of that up. Because I'd give up everything on the earth right now if I could go back.